Hey everyone, welcome to the Dental Office Managers Community Podcast, where we talk about the issues that matter most and help us to become better leaders in our dental practice. I'm your host, Kyle Summerford. Let's dive right in. Hey guys, it's Kyle, and welcome back to another episode of the Dental Office Managers Community Podcast. And today I'm excited because I have Adam Smith from Dental Intelligence with us today.
Hey everyone.
Adam, thanks so much for jumping on here. You and I were speaking maybe a couple months ago, and I was talking about how can we, answer some of the questions that our group members have. Like they want the information, and so what I was thinking was, what better way to do it than bring you, the expert on analytics and pretty much everything dental, because you're always in the group helping everyone out
Sure.
than to have you come on and like kind of we'll just like pick your brain. We'll shoot some questions off and we'll take your word for it. So thank you so much for getting on here today with us, Adam.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited.
Yeah, awesome. So all right, so we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna start with the first question. If you're ready, let me know.
I'm ready. Let's do it.
Cool. All right. So one of the questions we have from one of our group members was, excuse me, why are dental analytics so crucial for dental office managers today?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, there's a couple of reasons that I'll kind of put as top level reasons and then break down a little bit. The first reason that dental analytics are extremely important is the landscape of dentistry is changing. There are more and more corporations getting involved in dentistry that do this kind of reporting. They have these analytics. They know the things that they should be focusing on. They know what their average patient value is. They know these types of things. How much can we spend and still remain profitable? And so you've got this kind of new, not really new, but emerging competitor in the space that having your own analytics and being able to make those decisions based on analytics in your practice gives you a competitive edge. The second piece of that is dentistry, profitable dentistry is becoming harder and harder. And I will expand on that a little bit, and this will not be a shock to anyone, but inflation is here. We're all experiencing it.
Yeah.
And
Oh,
what's
yeah.
not inflating is our insurance reimbursement rates. They are basically staying the same, sometimes going down, and sometimes we get some good negotiation that helps us move them in the right direction. But because of that, we kind of have this squeeze that we see. Top line is coming down a little bit or staying the same, and bottom line is increasing a little bit as all of the other expenses, cost of living increases, so salaries increase, those types of things. So we see this squeeze, and that squeeze requires us to be more business savvy than we've ever been before to continue to make dentistry as good of a business as it has been in decades past.
Awesome. Yeah. So inflation, right? That's like, yeah, you hit it right on the nose. I mean, everybody's feeling inflation. And yeah, I mean, salaries are not really inflating at the same time. And, there's only so much you could really, like, I don't want to say squeeze out of your patient, right? Before they get pissed off and they're like, hey, you already raised the fee last year and now you're raising it again. So I guess you guys released the State of Dentistry report, which I shared in the group. And so, what were some of the key findings? Like maybe you could just kind of give us like just a little insight. I shared it in the group. However, I'm gonna reshare it when we air this video. But maybe you could kind of touch a little bit more on that.
Sure. Okay, so a couple key takeaways, and this is again where those analytics are really important, is as an industry. So we measure this across 10,000 plus customers that we have with Dental Intelligence. So it's a pretty good sample size. If you look at that, that's basically 10% of your SMB segment in the dental market. And so we measure it across all of those practices. And what we saw absolutely this year was an increase in accounts receivable days. And those accounts receivable days, I'll clarify that that's not including insurance. So
Mm. Wow.
patients' willingness to pay or ability to pay or our ability to collect from
Mm.
patients in a timely manner is decreasing. And it increased by, oh, I don't have it right in front of me. I think 5 days on average. So
Wow.
that is 5 days of production in your practice on average practice. So take your average daily production, let's say it's $10,000 a day, and it increased if at a $10,000 a day production dental practice, AR days increased by 5, so that would be $50,000 in additional patient AR that we saw over the previous year. So
Wow.
there are probably some economic factors in this, like we just talked about, inflation. Everyone's kind of feeling inflation. Um, the difficult part is patients are getting treatment, they're agreeing to pay the bills, and then they're not paying it at least as timely. So we need to look at, okay, if that's the case, how do we change our collections process to make sure that that's not the case for us? Because that hurts cash flows, that hurts overall collections. So there's a lot of people in this group already that I know are collecting up front. They're not seeing this trend, which is great. We're seeing it as a trend across all practices. So it's a
Mm.
time to look at collection processes and to make sure that those are tight and that we're not letting people walk out the door without paying their balance, because it's harder than ever to collect it once they are. Another piece that we saw in this is that our average patient growth rates declined. Um, and so that's a combination of patient retention and new patient acquisition. We didn't see the same new patient growth rates or patient-based growth rates that we saw in the past.
Mm.
So that could be that we're not spending as many dollars on marketing as we used to. That could be that we're not retaining patients as well. That could be that we did see a trend over the last 2 years of more and more offices going out of network with certain insurances. So that could be those patients dropping off and not being active patients
Mm.
anymore. There's some factors there, but we want to be cognizant of those and make sure that none of them are sneaking up on us, right? That we
Right.
have our retention buttoned up, that people are getting rescheduled. And if they're not getting rescheduled, that we have them on a list to make sure we get them back in, and that we have our marketing dollars dialed in, and that those are getting good returns for us on those marketing dollars. So again, knowing these benchmarks is fun, but it's only helpful if we make sure that we're not being impacted by these industry trends, right? So
Right.
those are two really notable ones that I think probably everyone in this group has at least um, some piece of the process that they're affecting. So,
Right.
but you
Yeah.
can
I
you
mean,
can read through it and see what the other ones are.
yeah. Well, you wrapped up my question on what trends have you noticed in dental practice performance over the past year. So
Okay.
that was you really dug deep on that one. So
So
that's
what
interesting.
can I highlight a couple more, Kyle?
Yeah, of course.
I think
Yeah.
you were in Telecon last year.
Yeah.
We have seen, and everyone probably feels this, a gradually increasing um, broken appointment rate. And it's been
Mm.
gradually
Yeah.
increasing since post-COVID. So we kind of saw this flat, right around 10% for a couple of years. Then COVID happened and we saw this big spike because everyone canceled all their appointments, right?
Right.
And then once people started coming back in, it just climbed from 10 to 16% on average broken
Mm.
appointments. So that's between no shows and cancellations. So they're giving you advance notice, but canceling their
Wow.
appointment and changing it, or they're breaking it day of. Um, so that's painful, but that's a big
Yeah.
shift. If you look at that, that's like you hear 16%, and you're like, oh, 16%, but that's an additional 6% of all of the appointments that we
Mm.
track across 10,000 practices. Every 6% increase in all of those appointments. It's not like, oh, that's a couple patients a day. That's thousands and thousands of broken appointments a day. And I know I'm preaching to the choir. You all feel it. Every office manager, oh,
Yeah.
cancellations, how do we get them
Yeah.
down? But um, understanding that that's happening and making sure that you've got a good pulse on that in your practice and where things are at. Are we below average? How are we communicating with patients? How are we communicating the value of appointments? Um, Analyzing all those things. That's where analytics become really helpful.
Mm. Wow. Yeah, that's a big number there. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's eye-opening for sure.
Yeah.
But it's good to
I
it's good. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
just want to expand one more piece on that is cancellations are probably the fastest way to erode profitability
Mm,
because when someone cancels, the dollars don't come in, but the expenses also don't turn off. So open chair
mm,
time is the biggest erosion of profitability in a dental practice that you can find because your costs stay in place, aside from variable costs, which are not huge, but the dollars don't come in. So working on that number as an office manager and saying, "Hey, I noticed this. We're right at average here. I think we can bring this down. Here's what that's going to do to profitability." That's a really, really great way to have the conversation with the owner and say, "I'm going to work on this number. It's going to mean this profitability wise," and show a lot of value from the office manager.
yeah. 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 Wow. So, yeah, I mean, 16% going back to that, that's a really high number. And
Yeah.
it's not like we could just kind of like what you just said, like the expenses, they continue to be there, right? So it's not like, oh, our 2-hour patient canceled for surgery today. So everyone clock out and let's shut off the lights
Turn the
and
lights off.
you
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
we're all gonna sit around for 2 hours in the dark, off the clock.
Yeah.
It's like, no, that's not realistic. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's eye-opening, man. So
Yeah.
thanks for that insight.
Yeah.
Now, when office managers, typically ask in the group, they mention KPIs,
Mhm.
and KPIs are very important for any practice. But for some of our members who may really be familiar with KPIs, what should they be tracking daily? Or first, we should say, what is a KPI?
Sure.
And, what should they be tracking daily, weekly, monthly, based on your recommendations?
Sure. So I get this question a lot. And so KPIs, key performance indicators. So they should be metrics that help you analyze your performance, right? It's your key performance. So I when people ask me this, we have to go one step higher first and say, what's the key performance that you're actually trying to drive? Okay, because I could give you a list of KPIs and they could be really great for one person, but they could be the wrong KPIs for another office manager. And I'll highlight that in two scenarios, okay? So one set of KPIs could be in place to try to drive additional butts in the seat, right? So get your practice busier. You don't have enough appointments on the appointment books. Let's set these KPIs up. Okay. So that's one, right? I could give you a list of KPIs for that. And they would be make sure your patient retention is up. Let's track marketing dollars. Let's track referral sources. Let's make sure that um, all of our cancellations and no-shows are being followed up on and reappointed. So there's a list of KPIs there that would drive busyness in a practice or more at-bats, people that are going to be in the chairs. And then that you have another practice that we see sometimes commenting in the group, and it's I'm scheduled out for 6 months. I can't get
Hmm.
I
Yeah.
don't have enough room for new patient appointments, the flip side of that. And if I gave them those same KPIs, they would be useless, right? We don't need to get busier. So before we determine KPIs and what we want to track daily, we need to know what's the performance that we're trying to drive, right? Are we trying to get busier? Will busier make us more productive as a practice? Or are we as busy as we can get and we need to try to drive production, right? We've got a lot of patients in the chair. We've got hygiene columns completely full, but maybe our case acceptance isn't as high, right? So if you look at that and you say hygiene's full, restorative has some opportunity, then the KPIs that you're going to look at are around case presentation, case acceptance. What's our patient case acceptance, right? Of the people that we present treatment to, what percentage of them accept some of that treatment? And then your dollar case acceptance, based on all the dollars we presented, what percentage of all the dollars got accepted? And those are the metrics that you're going to want to track on a daily basis if that's your practice. Remember, this side is we're full in hygiene. We don't need more visits, but we're still trying to grow production. Okay, and then the other side, we kind of named a couple of them over here, is we need to get busier. We need to make sure that the back door is closed as much as possible. Every patient leaving the practice, I'm going to follow up every day and say, of the 17 patients we saw yesterday, how many of them left without an appointment and why, right? And we're following up on it every single day. And then it looks like we had, of the 20 appointments we had scheduled yesterday, it looks like we had 3 of them cancel. What was their reasoning? Did they no show? Did they call? Did we get them rescheduled? So you're looking at things that are driving appointments. How many of our patients do we have in that are active, that are unscheduled? And are we chipping away at that on a daily basis, right? So those are the KPIs that I would be tracking in a practice that needs more butts in the seat. But the point of that is we can't just go and ask other people for their KPIs. What KPIs should I be tracking on a daily basis? You have to back into what KPIs drive the performance that I'm trying to drive the outcome that I'm trying to drive. So it's not really like probably the solid answer that people want, but it's a good process to go through in looking at is patient visits my limiting factor, or do I have room there? Or am I completely booked and I need to drive additional production off of the schedule? And we have some opportunity in case acceptance. So things that I'm always paying attention to in a dental practice is reappointment rate. How many of my patients are scheduled to come back? Because it's not only a good indicator of how busy I'm going to stay, it's a good indicator of a person's overall experience, right? If I have a bad experience, I'm probably not scheduling to come back. So it's also a good indicator of that. That's one that I will probably always track because I don't ever want to get less busy unless, I'm decreasing my capacity. But I'm looking at, so for me in our practice, we would look at case acceptance on a daily basis in both patient and dollars. We would look at patients that were reappointed. We would look at our cancellations and no-shows, see what reasons people were giving, and if that was increasing, if we were seeing increasing number of people that were sick. And then our collections percentage. That's one that without a doubt, you should always be tracking your collections. What percentage of the production are we collecting? Are we collecting in advance? That one doesn't change no matter what. If you're busy, if you're not busy and you're high production, either way, you still want to make sure you're collecting.
You're wrapping up all these questions I got for you.
Okay. I'm getting ahead of things, but
But it's great because listen, I know dental intelligence helps with all of this stuff, right? Because like as a dental manager or just a leader in the practice, right? It's like, okay, where do I start? How do I do this? How do I calculate this? What do I do? How do I run all these reports? So I know dental intelligence is a solution for all this.
sure.
It's just, a lot of our members just may not be aware, like, hey, I should be tracking these KPIs that are specific to my practice. And
Mhm.
that question has come through in the group where it's like, what KPIs do I track? And that's why I really wanted to put it here to have you answer, because it's like you said, it's the ones that matter to your practice, right?
Mhm.
There are a few that are universal, like you mentioned, but really you have to figure out your goals, what aligns with your practice. And I have seen members in the group, they're like, we don't need any more patients. We're booked for 6 months.
Yeah.
Listen, we're not booked for 6 months, so
Yeah. Yeah.
I more power to you. Like, hey, that's awesome. You know what I mean? But maybe there's other areas that you could be tracking, even though you are booked for 6 months. What are you booking for those 6 months?
Yeah.
Is it really generating enough revenue, or maybe you could be generating even more revenue for your practice?
Yeah,
So yeah, awesome, man. You really touched on all these questions I had. I'm gonna throw this one out there. Although listening to you, I kind of like gathered like the answer to this, but we're gonna ask it because we want the members to kind of like get the answer to this. And so, what are some of the red flags in analytics that managers should be looking out for become before they become a bigger issue?
sure. That's a really great question. Um, there are a couple things that so I'll give you the things that I feel like I see sneak up on people, right? And the reason that they sneak up on people is because they don't affect us until quite a ways down the road. Okay.
Mm,
So one of those which we discussed is increasing is collections percentage and AR days. So we see you see these posts in the group as well of someone that's saying, you know, we our cash flows are really bad. You know, the doctor can't make payroll, those types
mm,
of things, right? So making sure that that never becomes the case, that we know on a monthly basis what our AR days are looking like, how they're trending, that we make sure we're putting collection processes in place that make sure we're collecting the balances that we're supposed to collect. um, that's one that can sneak up because you are busy. As an office manager, your life is sometimes chaos, often chaos. I've
mm.
run the admin, but the reason that I can talk about all these things, Kyle, you know this, is I've
I
run
know.
the admin side of a practice, right? I
Yeah.
know how busy it can be. And that is, you can feel like you're doing everything right. You're getting patients to schedule, you're getting them to keep their appointments, you're getting them back on the schedule, you're converting new patients from the phone, you're verifying insurances, you're doing all of these things. And as an office manager, you feel like you're way on top of it. And then this can kind of creep up on you. So that's a red flag. Make sure that that red flag never happens, right? That's a daily track, no matter what. Um, and then the other one, like I said, is the busyness of the practice. And as an admin team, it's one of the things that we affect most heavily, right? Making sure that we're converting well when patients are calling in, making sure that we're letting the doctor know how well their marketing spend is working, right? They're not upfront. They don't know if their new marketing that they implemented is generating 30 calls or 0 calls. Like
No.
make sure that we're communicating, hey, we changed marketing companies, we're seeing no calls coming in, right? Uh,
Yeah.
that's one. The and then making sure that when patients are in, they're scheduling, they're coming back, they're keeping their appointments. Those are the things that in two areas will sneak up on you, because the reason that the reappointing will sneak up on you is because you saw them, right? You were busy today. And if you didn't reappoint them in the right way, you won't know until 6 months from now, right?
Mm,
You could have this major gap. Let's say you hire a new hygienist and you're doing reappointing in the hygiene chair. You could have one of your hygienists that's really bad at reappointing patients, and it's going to sneak up on you in 6 months because
right.
your hygiene schedule is not full. So those are the two red flags. The other thing that I would say is make sure that you're seeing things as a trend, right? Because if you just look at the benchmarks and say, where am I against these benchmarks? You could say, well, I'm there or I'm not there, but you're not seeing all of this work that's gone into getting to where you are. So either things are trending in the wrong direction and you want to know so you can make a change there, or they're trending in a really good direction and you could be being way harder on yourself than you need to be. So those are the two red flags that I see kind of sneaking up on people is
Mm.
their AR and their reappointing. Um, so yeah, I'll leave it at that. I could go on for a long time, but I've got some more questions.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's why I love listening to you, man. Because you got it. You're there. You're in the trenches. You've dealt with this yourself. So, but it sounds like yeah, those are like slow bleeds, right? They're slow bleeds where it's like you may not really pay attention to it right away, but it's going to catch up at some point, and then you're going to be like, oh my God, what do we do now?
Yes,
What do we
they're,
do?
they're slow bleeds, but they're really hard to rectify once they
Mm,
hit, right? So
Yeah.
6 months down the road, when that first wave of hygiene appointments that were supposed to come in from the hygienist that changed the way that they're reappointing, you've had 6 months of that happening. And to go and rectify all of that is hard, right?
Yeah.
That's a lot of calling to try and go and get those patients
Yeah.
back on the schedule. That's texting, that's calling, that's a lot of time. So
Yeah.
you're you're right. That's those
Awesome.
are ones you don't want to have sneak up on you.
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of calling, texting, and listen, I know what dental intelligence does, but some of our members in our group may not be familiar with dental intelligence. So how and what does dental intelligence do for dental office managers and their practices?
So that's a great question. So I like to describe it as dental intelligence is working on becoming the end-to-end practice performance solution for a doctor, for an admin team, for the team that's running the business side of the practice. Um, we want to be everything that you need from scheduling appointments, texting patients, making sure that cancellations and no-shows get followed up on. So, and I'll kind of walk through what it is with the product, right? So the analytics piece, I describe to people as here's where you're going to identify opportunities for the practice, right? Is where you're going to set your what should our KPIs be? Where do we have opportunity for improvement? You're going to go and you're going to look at okay, we're really good here. We're not as good here. We need to make sure that all of our, we're really good when patients are in the chair. We have good case acceptance. We're not as busy as we want to be. So we're going to set our KPIs off of those busyness KPIs. How do we make sure our reappointments better? How do we invest in marketing and make sure we're capturing those dollars from marketing? How do we make sure that our cancellations and no-shows are as low as possible? So we use those analytics to identify opportunities in the practice. And then the next step is our communications platform will help you make those communications with patients. So you'll set up a follow-up list. You can follow up via text. You can follow up via phone call. We're making sure that all of your appointment reminders, your confirmations are automated, that we're trying to drive those broken appointments down as far as possible. And then we're helping collect the payments on the payments side of things. So once you've completed production, that you've got text to pay options that make it as easy to pay as possible. So we're really working on being from the very moment that someone steps foot in your practice, making sure that you don't lose them through the cracks, making sure that you have the right communication processes in place, and then making sure that you're collecting from that patient, working with insurances, getting paid from insurances. So all of that, it's really when the admin team learns how to use it, it's one of the best friends of the office manager and admin teams.
Yeah, so I mean, listen, I know you guys have so many features in dental intelligence, and I know so many office managers love it. Realistically speaking, right? We spoke about KPIs and what office managers should be paying attention to in their practice. Now, if they didn't have dental intelligence, they would have to figure out, calculate, run reports, and figure this all out on their own, right?
Mhm.
So, realistically speaking, could you give us an idea on how much time does dental intelligence save in doing all of this for you?
Yeah, so we've run some estimations on a couple pieces that people really love. So one of the pieces that people really love are digital forms, right? That the patient intake forms are automated to new patients, and that health histories are automated. If you say one every year, every 2 years, they're automated with those appointment reminders at those times. That for restorative visits, the consents that are attached to certain procedures are automated. So they're coming in for a root canal. You can have a consent for a root canal automatically sent out to the patients. Just that piece alone is saving offices over 15 hours per week
Wow.
in forms entry, in working with the patients to fill their forms out in the office, in those pieces. Um, if I were to try to build out, and I haven't run this in the numbers. It's kind of harder to quantify. But if I were to try to build out the KPIs that Dental Intelligence has and then run them on a daily basis so I can have a running total of those, and so I can see what the historical performance has been, it's going to take me, even in Open Dental, which we used Open Dental in the practice that I helped run the admin side. I can create custom queries. I can get those numbers out, but then even just getting them into a spreadsheet where it's going to plot those and let me see historical performance, I'm going to be saving at least tens of hours per week in getting all of them data.
Yeah, that's what I figured because I mean the amount of data and you gave me a very data-driven answer, by the way, with the forms. You were like 15 hours, like, right? You said 15 hours.
Yep.
And that's just one like feature of dental intelligence, right? I mean, you guys
Yeah.
got so many more. So I could imagine how many hours actually adds up to where the practice is actually saving time,
Yeah.
which, as we know, time is money in the dental practice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's awesome. That's awesome, man. So
Yeah,
yeah,
that's our
so
goal. Like we know how busy office managers are. We know how busy the admin team is. You got to try to make the patients happy when they come in, make sure they're having a good experience, make sure they know where the bathroom is, that they went to the bathroom before they're supposed to go back to the back. You've got so many things that you're focusing on. So we're trying to make these things in running the business as accessible as possible and save as much time as possible.
yeah, awesome, man. Well, I think you guys have an amazing software. I think Dental Intelligence is great. A lot of the members in the group love it. I think it saves time, saves money, and saves headaches. So, you guys have my vote for sure. Um, Adam, I'm gonna share in this video for members in our group. We're gonna put this special link down at the bottom of this video for the special deal that you guys have with our members. But this was a good education session, and so I want to be able to maybe do more of these in the future. Group members, this is what we're gonna do. You guys ask questions, so we're gonna bring you the answers from experts like Adam. Adam, thank you so much for you taking the time out today and just sharing your knowledge with us.
Thanks for having me on, Kyle. It's fun. You'll see me a lot in the groups. If I comment too much, just say, hey, like, leave some comments for everyone else. But I try to be helpful in as many comments as I can be.
Yeah, no, you're super helpful, man. I appreciate you being here with us. So thanks again for coming on here.
Awesome. Thanks, Kyle.
All right, take care. Bye, guys.